Hi, everyone. This is Gary Berman, host of the Cyber Hero Adventure Show, coming to you with an actually, you know what? I'm going to do something different for you because I'm mindful of what you just said. So I'm going to edit this part out. We'll start with this intro. Hi, everyone. This is Gary Berman, host of the Cyber Hero Adventure Show, coming to you today with a very, very special micro briefing. We're going to be focusing on the unique challenges and opportunities facing small, mid sized businesses, and the fact that about 80% of them or so don't even really have an IT person, let alone cybersecurity sort of personnel. And we have a very special guest that I'd like to welcome to the show who's going to help us unpack the challenges and opportunities. So let's say hi to Ajay Gulati. Hi, Ajay.
Hello. Hi, Gary. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's really a special treat for me to have you here. You and I have spent a fair amount of time just contemplating the unique challenges of the SMB ecosystem, and in your role as CEO of Kite Cyber, tell us a little bit about how you got into this. What is your origin story?
Mhm. So, Gary, what we saw in the market is that a lot of SMBs and mid-sized companies in US, their cybersecurity posture was very weak. And with the advent of AI, the attackers are becoming smarter and smarter, but the companies are not able to keep up with that. So we came up with this idea of how can we provide comprehensive security and compliance to SMBs while leveraging some of the AI technologies and also leveraging some of the advances in the endpoint resources as our laptops and endpoints are becoming more and more powerful. How can we combine the two to really provide much more comprehensive security?
So, just to dimensionalize what we mean by SMB, would you say that's companies with, let's say, 200 or fewer employees? Or what are your thoughts about even defining what an SMB is?
I would say in terms of SMB, we target anywhere from as small as 10 employees to maybe as high as 2 to 3,000 employees. And
Uh,
small could be less than 250 and 250 to 3,000 is mid-size.
and, there's such a range of capabilities and competencies within, that number of companies. In many cases, the owner is the IT equivalent person, but they also do all these other things that entrepreneurial owners do, right?
Yes, yes. We actually have run into many customers where I really get surprised, where the owner is actually creating accounts for people, the owner is managing some of their infrastructure and making decisions about security and what to buy. And in most cases, they are not really very well equipped to do it. So either they end up doing very little because they think that it's not needed, or they end up doing much more than required and then they realize they have overspent.
Well, those are two really great insights. Just focusing on the first one for a moment, as the owner of a small business many, many years ago, most of my audience knows that I was hacked by insiders, and I never thought I had anything to lose until I lost it.
Yeah, yeah. I think most people do underestimate cyber threats and they think that, oh, we will deal with it when it happens. But I think in this day and age, it's very critical for anybody to have at least a bare minimum security posture and make sure that they are protected with or against some basic cyber attacks and they should follow some basic protection mechanisms.
Indeed, and you mentioned compliance requirements. We have a patchwork of state, local, federal, global regulatory constraints. If people want to be in the supply, chain of the Department of Defense, they have, a CMMC requirements and HIPAA for healthcare. I mean, how do you think about the complexity of the compliance ecosystem?
Mhm. So I feel, Gary, maybe 5, 6 years ago, compliance wasn't as mainstream as it is today. I
Right.
see a lot of companies where as soon as they go to their first enterprise customer, the customer is asking them, send us your SOC 2 report, send us your HIPAA report, and they are actually asking these companies to show that they are actually following compliance controls and they are serious about security. And that's why there is also a big rise in the number of GRC companies and other type of companies who help with just streamlining compliance and doing evidence collection and other things.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And so you've been kind enough to provide me with, some great information in the form of this deck. So what do you say we run through a few of the slides?
Sure, would be happy to and go over what's our story, what we are doing here.
Okay, so what are we
So
looking at here?
yeah, so basically what we see, Gary, is that in most companies, small to mid-size, they go and buy different solutions for endpoint management, for security, for VPN, for DLP. The challenge becomes that these becomes four different siloed tools. You end up getting a lot of security and compliance gaps as a result. And if you want to do threat intelligence, it's not easy for you to say, okay, there is a problem that I'm detecting in terms of compliance or security attack. Let me go and stop the access for VPN. And somebody has to then understand and do these steps manually. Another problem that I see, there is this agent fatigue where people say I'm running way too many agents with different UIs and the complexity of managing them. And obviously, if you are buying four tools from four vendors, the cost becomes too high. And we really want to simplify and say that, look, can we provide them with a single agent that can take care of these multiple problems?
Sounds good to me. And one of the questions that comes up all the time over many years that I've been doing this show is, many organizations don't even know how many endpoints they have, or including IoT
Mhm.
devices and those kinds of things. How do you, try to conceptualize that and organize all that?
Mhm. So I think we basically provide an agent that runs on the endpoints. And once you deploy it, we give you a single place to manage all your devices and see your inventory. Now, in terms of the security specifically, the main problem that I see is that most companies, they have very basic security, which is antivirus. If they are a little bit sophisticated, they would have EDR. But these days, the attacks are not on your device directly. The attacks are primarily on the network. If you read any of the stories today, the attacks come from phishing, internet access, browser weaknesses, things like that. And this is an area where most companies are very minimally protected.
Yeah, indeed. And I saw that your light went on and off. I assume that is not cyber related, right?
Yeah, it's just that because I'm sitting in the room, it didn't detect me, and
So
then the light
you,
went
you
off.
you know I do superhero comics, so I attempt to be funny. So forgive me if it doesn't work.
Sure, sure.
But what we have here is some interesting data to dimensionalize the challenges and the problem. Why don't you pick one of these, and which one do you think would you like to amplify?
So if you look at it here, essentially we are looking at three big problems. One is that companies don't know what are all the SaaS apps and Gen AI apps employees are using. Second is the phishing, where people are doing simulations, but there is no real-time phishing prevention, which is what we provide. And one I would like to emphasize on is actually the data exfiltration and data visibility, because ultimately data is the most important asset the enterprise has.
Right.
And if you ask somebody, do they know where all their sensitive data is? And is the sensitive data traveling to unauthorized locations? Most companies have no real control over that.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. This is, I think, very useful to think about traditional security versus what you are doing. So maybe you can explain to our audience the differences depicted on this slide.
Sure, sure. So as you know, Gary, cybersecurity is a very mature field. There are a lot of players in the market. There are a lot of great solutions. What we noticed is that for network security, there are only two types of solutions. Either they are running a cloud gateway, or prior to those, there used to be appliances. Now, the challenge is that if you are using any of these, You are tunneling all your internet traffic through these gateways or appliances. And because they are in network devices, we have found they have a bunch of security gaps. They also lead to poor user experience because of high latency and the hairpinning of data.
Right.
And obviously, the cost is much higher because you have to cover the cost of the cloud infrastructure and appliances.
Yeah, and you're also assuming that, for example, in the case of the cloud, that your information is safe because it's configured properly. But one of the things that everyone knows is that's not always the case, is it?
True, true. Actually, most of these solutions, just the configuration sometimes takes 30 to 60 days. And that itself becomes a challenge for SMBs.
So as we're looking here, you're pointing out some of the benefits. So why don't you share with our audience what you think about this?
Sure. So I think the core thesis that we have is that we can provide security on the endpoint by leveraging a few resources on the endpoint itself. Now, the benefit of that is that the security stays with the endpoint and we eliminate all these middle of the network devices. And we also have the context of the user and the device, so we don't have as many security gaps that these existing tools have. Second, the performance is much higher because we have no hairpinning of data. The data is directly going from device to the destination on the internet. And third, the cost is much lower and the complexity is much lower for ASMB because we are able to onboard people within a day based on just assigning or deploying the endpoint software on each of their devices.
That really maps with something that I've been fortunate to be coached on a lot, and that is whenever possible, when it comes to endpoint users, make it what I call easy peasy. Does that make sense to you?
True, true, absolutely. And that is one of the main tenets.
Indeed. So, is this easy? What I'm looking at here?
Yeah, so I think basically what you are looking at is that we provide a single solution, single UI, single agent that gives you all four of these broad feature categories in terms of endpoint management, network security, VPN, and DLP. And while doing that, we are eliminating these appliances and cloud gateways, and we are incorporating another metric of trust called device trust. Because now only the device which is managed by a Kite Cyber agent and trusted is going to be allowed access to a lot of your sanctioned applications.
Indeed, that makes sense to me. And this notion of compliance that we referred to a little bit earlier, it's very complicated for SMBs. I mean, if you think of the Department of Defense, last time I checked, they had, I think it was something like 309,000 suppliers to the DoD, and they have these requirements that have been changing over the last 5 years. So you don't really know what you're supposed to comply with. Does your system make that easy peasy?
Yeah, so I would say, Gary, these days what I have noticed is compliance is one of the biggest drivers for security solutions. Because the moment you are trying to sell something to DoD or any other even large enterprise, they would ask you for your compliance framework that you follow, what's your security posture.
That's
And
right.
that's one of the things we really focus on. We go to customers and say, first, you tell us what compliance frameworks you want. Based on that, we can tell you what all we are able to meet on endpoint management, network security, VPN, DLP, and what all do you really need. And if a customer doesn't need DLP because they don't have the requirement based on compliance, we even give that as an option. We say, look, you don't need this right now, and you don't have to pay for it.
I
And
understand.
just
That's a
focus
really
on what you.
important. Forgive the interruption. It's just you triggered something very important, which is everybody has limited time and limited budgets, and in the case of SMBs, limited people. So your system, if you had to just pull a sort of number based on your experience at the moment, like what percentage improvement, making it easier or lower costs, or the things that you mentioned so far, does your system provide to an SMB? Like how
I
much
mean, I
better
would
is it for
say
them?
I would say the biggest thing that we help them with is that most of these companies, they simply cannot deploy many of the existing solutions
Right.
due to cost and complexity.
Right.
And we go and enable it for them. And just to give maybe a little bit of a quantitative number, typically, if you buy four solutions and you pay for each one of them, we are able to give you all four for the price of maybe one of them or one and a half solution.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
that basically is the real dollar saving for a customer.
That sounds good. So the notion of software as a service and cybersecurity around that and the delivery of everything through SaaS platforms, maybe you can share with our audience, especially those people who have SMBs, how does this help with management? I like the fact that it's a lightweight agent. Maybe you can elaborate.
Sure, sure. So our solution essentially has two parts. One, there is a lightweight agent that runs on the endpoint. And as I said, we really want the security for the endpoint to stay with the endpoint so that if you go home, suddenly you are not covered by security. That's not a good sign for an enterprise.
Right.
And when somebody is traveling, the security should travel with the person rather than being left in the office.
Yeah.
So we run an endpoint agent that is on the device. It stays with the device. All the data path is through the device and this agent. And then we have a simple SaaS UI where the security admin or a CISO or head of security would log in and they can set up controls and policies and see alerts and dashboard. And that is where they can consume information, but no data is coming to the cloud. So we really focus on privacy first, but give you all the benefits of a cloud managed security.
Let me pull open up the aperture a little bit just for a moment because over the past years you would go to a conference and you would be hearing zero trust everywhere, and you have 400 booths and vendors at a larger conference, and at that time everyone is saying that. Now for this year, you're hearing everything is AI. What does that mean to you in the context of what you've created here?
Sure, sure. So first of all, I'll tell you something interesting about zero trust, Gary. I feel if you ask 10 people what is zero trust, you will probably get 12 answers.
Exactly.
And that itself is something that many people get confused with. And I think AI is mostly a orthogonal axis to zero trust, where you are basically saying now the attackers are becoming much smarter. And yes, you should be using zero trust security, but can we help AI defend against AI? So now the vendors are trying to provide even better solutions which require less human intervention.
And the pace of technology adoption and change, given the big LLMs, and now the ability to create focused LLMs, could be on a sector, of the economy. It could be by anything. How would you advise a small to medium business to prioritize the utilization of AI, and are they in danger of losing the human connection with their contacts?
I mean, I would say there are two ways SMBs can today use AI. First is there are a lot of Gen AI tools out there that can help them improve their team's productivity. And these tools are great tools to use. The only thing they need to be careful about, they should use them in a safe manner. They should know what tools are being used by the employees
Right.
and what data is being shared with those tools. And
Exactly.
that is something where I call this a problem of shadow AI. Previously, we used to have shadow SaaS, and now shadow AI is becoming a problem. And that's one area that we highlight with our solution as well. We help you manage shadow AI. Now, the second big change that AI is bringing is it's converting previously used SaaS applications into a full-blown AI agent itself.
That's
So
right.
previously, you would have a SaaS application to help you with accounting, but now AI will give you an accountant itself, where the accountant is the agent. There would be a SaaS application to help you with lead generation. Now there is a AI agent that does lead generation for you.
That's right.
And I think that is where a lot of security controls and security work can also be automated. Like SREs can be automated, SOC people can be automated, maybe even a CISO can be automated to some extent to say, here is a AI avatar of a CISO, and it can help you with 90% of the things.
That's an interesting idea. So as we're beginning to wrap up here, perhaps you can just encapsulate, what we talked about in using this slide.
Mhm. So at high level, I just want to mention two main things. One is I think both SMBs and MSSP should focus on hyper-converged solutions so that they are deploying minimum number of agents and getting maximum security coverage. Second, I do believe security is going to move more and more to the edge, and that's where it belongs because that is where you can really minimize the security gaps. And third, moving closer to the edge also gives you a higher performance and lower cost. And that is really what we are trying to achieve because I just feel everybody deserves to get better cybersecurity without having to spend a lot of time and money and requiring a lot of expertise. We need to make it easier for people to access.
Indeed. And in terms of cost savings, I'm sure it varies, depending on a whole bunch of variables, but is there some percentage cost savings that you think might be an average number so our audience can understand, or is that just too hard to calculate?
I mean, I would say depending on the number of tools they are using or they want to use, it's anywhere between almost 30% to as high as 60%.
Wow, that's terrific. And how long, I just want to go back to one important point of implementation. How long would it take I'm just going to use an average size SMB, to complete implementation? Let's say 100 endpoints, just as an example.
So for 100 endpoints, Gary, we can pretty much do the implementation in one day itself.
Wow.
Because we will connect to their existing SSO or email provider. We are able to get the list of all the employees, and either we can send them an automated email to help with the agent install and instructions, or if the company already has a way to do automated install using Intune or other software, we can push the software through that solution.
And just a final question on that, on the notion of data privacy and compliance with regulatory frameworks. Where does this data reside? I mean, are you holding? Is Kite Cyber holding any of the client's data, or is it entirely in their systems?
That's a very good question, Gary. So in our case, we are not getting access to any of clients' data. The data is
That's a
directly
good
going from
answer.
endpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
to endpoint to the cloud or wherever it needs to go,
Right.
either public or private applications. The only thing we are collecting is the metadata. We are collecting alerts, and that's what we are showing to the customers, but no data ever traverses to us.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Well, Ajay Gulati, co-founder of Kite Cyber and CEO, on behalf of A Grateful Digital Universe, thanks for who you are and for what you do and why you do it. And how does our audience get more information about Kite Cyber?
They can simply go to kitecyber.com. We have a very easy way to either book a demo or they can use a free trial of the solution. Everything is available online. They can always reach out to me at ag@kitecyber.com, or you can reach out with info@kitecyber.com, and we are happy to provide more information. And we are very consultative in cybersecurity. We are happy to even discuss your overall security posture, see what you need, and recommend you what tools you need, maybe in addition to Kite Cyber, and what's the minimal tools that you need to be secure.
Indeed. Well, thanks so much, AJ. And to our audience, stay tuned for more from the Cyber Hero Adventure Show.
Thanks, Gary.